Now that we've just brought in our flowers that we picked, we're going to press. You want to open up your flower press, whether you're using the Max or the regular, it's the same process for both. Well, this is where your little scissors, if you have some, comes in. And you want to cut just that end tip off right there. Just going to remove some of that bulk, makes them dry easier. Now you can do them with the stems on. That takes a little more practice because the stems tend to be thicker and have more moisture in than the petals. Now if you don't have scissors, what you can do is you can just take your fingernails, you can just pinch it off. Now you can put as many in your flower press as will fit, but you don't want to have them touching because anything touching will stick when it's dry. But you could put as many in here as you could fit without anybody touching. So now we're going to take our layers and we're going to roll it on. That way if you need to, you can adjust any petals that might be folding over. Like that. And then we're going to put this back on. And sandwich it again. Put our clips on. And to start, we're going to put it in for 30 seconds. You want to err on the side of caution with the short burst, especially while you're learning, because you don't want to leave it in too long and you could burn your flower while you press. We're going to open up our press and we're going to check the flowers. Rarely are they dry on the first burst. But when you open it up, you're going to see moisture on your platen. And you want to take a paper towel or a towel or something and you want to wipe that off, both sides. By wiping it off, you'll be able to gauge how much moisture is left in the flower after each burst. And that, along with the feel, will help you know when your flower is ready. Now, because they were wet and they're drying, they're going to stick to what they're touching. Some a little bit, some, sometimes more than others. So when you open it up, you want to just carefully peel back that fabric. That leaves the flower flat and the fabric will peel right off. holding the flower tight against the bottom. Just gently touching it because it's not stuck on there too bad. So you're going to touch the flower all over because they tend to dry from the outside in because the petals are thinner than the center parts. Now the petals feel almost dry, but the centers still need a little bit. So I'm going to close up the press and put it back in again. Now as you press more and more, your flower press, your refill, and your liners are going to get dirty. The flowers are just going to stain. That's from the moisture coming out. And we're going to put it in for a shorter period of time this time because they're drier than they were the first time. So this time we're going to put it in for 20 seconds. And the dirty liners and felt pads, that won't bother anything with your pressing unless they have chunks, pieces of flour on them, or maybe they're stiff from a lot of sap coming out of the flower. Then you can take the cotton linings and you can wash them by hand and then lay them out flat to dry. Or you could put them in your flower press to dry. So we're going to open up our press again and do the same thing as we did before. I'm going to take, see there's a lot less moisture on there, there's just a little bit. So we know that there wasn't much left to come out of the flower. I'm going to wipe it off again. And again, we're going to carefully open it up. Now if it sticks more than that and it won't come off, then you can also take your fabric and you can gently stretch it and work it. Again, trying to keep the flower flat and bending only the fabric. And you can work it off that way. Now the flower, you can see, it doesn't droop. It's not crispy. It still has, it still has some flexibility to it. But you wouldn't want to bend it sharply. But on its own, it doesn't droop. It also feels like wrapping tissue paper. Has a papery feel to it all over, even in the center. And that's when you know that they're dry and they can either be stored or they can be put to use in a project. Now when handling your flowers, tweezers come in very handy. It's good to handle them by the centers where the green parts are, because if you handle them too much or too roughly on the petals, then say if you're going to put them in resin or even possibly glue over them, then you can come up with wet spots on your petals because those would actually be damaged areas. So they're very delicate. You want to be very gentle with your flowers.